Hello students, welcome back. Once again, this is Dr. Mercado speaking. This is Accounting 1304, Introduction to Accounting 2, and we are covering some of the problems from Chapter 11 homework, which deals with accounting for purchases and cash payments. Okay. Now in this short lecture, I am going to be going over exercise 11-4. Okay. So let me go ahead and jump over. By now, all of you should have read Chapter 11 and should be familiar with its content. I am going to go over the problem. I'm not going to go so much over the content of the chapter. I'm going to let you all do that on your own time. Exercise 11-4 deals with computing gross profit. There is a section on your ebook that covers, let me see, it's section 11-2E. It covers the computation of gross profit. All of the information is included there, and that way you can follow along. We have some examples there, so make sure that you do go back and review that particular section of your electronic book so you can become familiar with it. Okay, now going back to the problem. Okay, it says the following data were taken from the accounts of Fluter Hardware, a small retail business. We have to determine the gross profit. Okay, and they give you all of this information that we have to utilize. Now, gross profit is basically the difference between your net sales and your cost of goods sold. That gives you your gross profit. In the ebook, it gives you a series of 4 steps to calculate your gross profit. Step number 1 is to compute your net sales. That's your sales minus your sales returns and allowances minus your sales discounts. Step 2 is to compute your goods available for sale. That's your beginning inventory plus any cost of goods purchased. Step 3 is to compute the gross profit. Is any goods available for sale minus your ending inventory. And then finally, step 4 is to compute your gross profit, which is your net sales minus your cost of goods sold. Okay, so these are the steps outlined in the book for you. Now we're going to apply those steps to the actual problem, and we're going to be able to calculate it. Okay, so step number 1, we're going to compute our net sales. Okay, so we always start off with our sales. Okay, and our sales in this particular problem are $120,000. Okay, that is our sales figure. Now we're going to be doing some calculations. That's why we have 4 columns. The last and final column will be your grand total, your subtotal, and then the subtotal from the second column, and so on and so forth. Okay, so for sales, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put that in my third column. I have sales of $120,000. Okay, now as I work this, I'm going to be marking off the numbers that I use. That way I don't reuse them or make a mistake or whatever the case might be. Okay, so I've got sales of $120,000. Okay, it says to deduct your sales returns and allowances. Okay, less sales returns and allowances. Did we have any sales returns and allowances? Yes, we did. We had of $900. But now look at the formula. We're deducting sales returns and allowances as well as sales discounts. So I'm going to have a calculation to do to be able to get the total. So because I have a calculation to do, I'm going to enter that in the column right before it. That way I can do some calculations there. So I'm going to subtract my sales returns and allowances, and I am going to also subtract my sales discounts. Okay. So I'm going to subtract my sales returns and allowances of $900, and I'm going to deduct my sales discounts of $650. Okay. So I've got my 2 items, sales returns and allowances and sales discounts. I'm going to add those together. Okay. So I can get a total, and I'm going to carry the total over to my third column. So my total for sales returns and allowances and sales discount is $1,550. Okay. Okay. So now I can calculate my net sales. Okay. Net sales. Your net sales is going to be your sales minus your total sales returns and allowances and sales discounts, which is the $1,550, and that gives me $118,450. Remember, your sales, your net sales equals to your sales minus your returns and allowances minus your sales discounts. So this is your sales. This is the total sales, returns and allowances, and sales discounts. You subtract those two numbers on your third column, and that will give you your total on the fourth column. Okay? That is step number 1. Step number 2 is compute goods available for sale. Okay? That's going to be your beginning inventory plus your cost of goods purchased. Now here they're missing another component, because just like sales has sales, returns and allowances and sales discounts, purchases also has purchases, returns and allowances and purchase discounts that need to be factored in as well. And we'll factor those on step number 2. Okay, so step number 2 is cost of goods sold. Okay, so we're going to start off with our beginning inventory. Okay, so we have merchandise inventory, January the 1st, and that is $35,000. I'm going to put that on my third column. Okay. Okay. So that's my beginning merchandise inventory. Then I had some purchases during the period. Okay. How much did we purchase in additional merchandise? Well, it says that we had purchases during the period of $77,600. Okay, so I'm going to put those purchases. Oh, I put that number in the wrong cell. Sorry. Merchandise inventory is 35,000, and then my purchases goes right there. There we go. I was like, why are my numbers off? Okay, so purchases 77,600. There we go. You see, even with having lines, I can't see very well. Okay, so we've got our purchases. So we've got our beginning merchandise inventory of 35,000. I had purchases of 77,600. Now, just like I had purchases, let me just mark purchases off, because then I'm going to forget. Lately, I've been forgetting a lot of things. So, okay. So now, along with the purchases, we made some purchases, but we also had some returns. Okay. So we had purchases, returns, and allowances during the period of $4,100. So I'm going to subtract less purchases, returns, and allowances. And because I am going to be adding two numbers together, I'm going to put that in the first column, and that is $4,100. Okay, let me mark that off. And then we also had purchase discounts. Okay. And we had purchase discounts of $2,300. There we go. Let me mark that off. Okay. So we made a purchase of $27,600. We returned $4,100, and we had purchase discounts because we paid on time or we paid before of $2,300. So now I need to get a total of these two numbers. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get a total of those two numbers. And let's see what that gives us. That gives me $6,400. Okay. Now I can calculate my net purchases. Okay. And your net purchases is going to be your beginning merchandise inventory. Okay. Plus your purchases minus your purchase, returns and allowances, and your purchase discounts. Oh, I'm forgetting one more thing, guys. Wait. Let me see. What are we forgetting? Oh, yes. The problem is giving us one more thing, okay, which is not being covered here as well. We also had freight, okay? I was like, why am I not balancing? Okay, so we're missing one more thing. So we've got our purchase, returns, and allowances. We've got our purchase discounts. That gives us $6,400. And then we do get our net purchases. Net purchases. That was right. That minus that will give us our $71,200. But then we also had to pay freight. Okay, it says freight on merchandise purchased during the period. So we purchased merchandise and we had to pay for the freight. Okay, so that's extra cost to move the merchandise. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add my freight. Okay, so I'm going to add my freight, and the amount of my freight is $12.50. There we are. I was like, why are we off? There, we had freight. Okay, now right now I'll go back and I'll explain this a little bit more. Okay, so we had freight of $12.50. Okay, now I can get my cost of goods purchased. There we go. Okay, so for my cost of goods purchased, I'm going to get my beginning inventory plus my net purchases plus your freight. Okay, and that'll be $107,450. Okay, so what did we do? We got our beginning inventory plus our net purchases. Our net purchases is our purchases minus our purchase returns and allowances minus our purchase discounts. So that gives us the $71,200. So you add your beginning inventory plus your net purchases, and you add the freights, because you had to pay for the freight to move the merchandise. So that's part of the cost of your goods, paying for the freight. Okay, so that's $107,450. Okay. Okay, so very good. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to deduct less your merchandise inventory December the 31st. At the end of the period, how much merchandise did you have? Well, according to this, we had merchandise of $32,000. Okay. Okay, let me mark that off. Okay, so I'm going to deduct the merchandise inventory that I still have, that I did not sell. Okay, that merchandise inventory is still sitting in my warehouse. It has not been sold. So I'm going to deduct that from my calculation. Okay, and then we can calculate our cost of goods sold. Okay, and let me put an underline right there. Okay, so your cost of goods sold is going to be the cost of goods purchased. So I spend $107,450 on all of my merchandise. I'm going to deduct whatever I still have available in my warehouse, which is $32,000, and that's going to give me my cost of goods sold of $75,450. So this number represents the actual goods sold. So I started off with $35,000 in inventory. I purchased $77,600. I returned $4,100. I got a discount of $2,300. That gave me net purchases of $71,200. I had to pay some freight charges. I added $12.50. Okay, and then if I add those, if I add my beginning inventory, your net purchases, and your freight, that's going to give you the cost of goods purchased of $107,450. Now, from that cost of goods purchased, that is what you've spent on everything that you have. I know that I have left over in the warehouse $32,000 worth of merchandise. Okay, so that means that I'm going to deduct the merchandise that I know I have in my warehouse. So that means that I must have sold the difference, which is $75,450. Okay, now I can calculate my gross profit. Okay, and your gross profit is your net sales minus your cost of goods sold. Okay, so your net sales is going to be your net sales minus your cost of goods sold, and that gives you $43,000. Okay, there we are. So we've calculated our gross profit. Okay, so step number 1, compute net sales. Step number 2, compute goods available for sale. Okay, step number 3, compute your cost of goods sold. Okay, and then step number 4, compute your gross profit. Okay, so just remember, On the sales, you're going to get your sales, subtract your sales returns and allowances, sales discounts to get your net sales. For your cost of goods sold component, you have to get your beginning inventory, add any purchases, subtract any purchase returns and allowances and any purchase discounts, get your net purchases. After you get your net purchases, if there's any freight that you paid for moving the merchandise, you have to add that as well as a cost. And then you're able to calculate your cost of goods purchased. Okay, you deduct your ending inventory, whatever you have sitting in the warehouse, and that will let you know how much you have of cost of goods sold. How much did you actually sell? And then once you know how much you sold, you can compare the amount of your net sales minus the cost of goods sold, and that's going to give you the profit. So you spent $75,450 on the goods. You were able to sell it for $118,450, making a gross profit of $43,000. Okay, so review this example. Review the example on your book. The steps are provide a high level, but they don't include all of the components. Like for example, on the step number 2, it just says beginning inventory plus cost of goods purchased. They failed to include your deduction of purchase returns and allowances, purchase discounts. They failed to add for you to add your freight. There's some components missing in the steps, but based on the information provided, those are things that need to be adjusted for. Okay, so this is a completed problem for your gross profit. That way you know where I got each of my numbers from. Okay, the only two numbers that should be at the very end are your net sales and your cost of goods sold, because you're comparing your at the end of the day, your gross profit is the difference between your net sales and cost of goods sold. So you want to get those two numbers at the very end. Those are your grand totals that you're going to be deducting to calculate your gross profit. Okay, so this is another of the exercises that you'll be seeing on your homework. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. And that is it for exercise 11-4. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.